Good afternoon, CASL colleagues. I hope that you and your loved ones are safe and well, and that the new academic year is off to a smooth start for each and every one of you, or at least as smooth a start as is possible given our current circumstances. Welcome to this first ever State of the College. In terms of format, I'll be starting with a high-level overview of our current state of affairs, and we'll then shift to some broader thoughts about CASL's future. Feel free to submit questions if you have them via the Q&A feature, as I will be setting aside time at the end of my presentation to answer as many of those questions as I can. Before I share some thoughts about the current state of the college, I wanted to take a couple of moments to express my sincere and deeply felt appreciation for all that you have done over the past 6 months to keep the college moving forward, to support our students, and to support each other as we navigate this new remote learning and working environment. As we are all very much aware, this has been anything but an easy task. I know that you have been asked to do much in a short period of time, that the demands upon you and your time have been persistent and ever in flux, that this transition has been difficult, and that there is more hard work ahead as we all wait to see how this pandemic will play out. I understand too that the isolation that many of us are feeling, the long hours we are all putting in, and the challenges that many of you are facing relative to caring for and educating your children or caring for loved ones and neighbors weighs heavy, and that there are those among us who are struggling to hold themselves together, let alone moving their lives and careers forward. Add to this mix our current social and political duress, as well as the university's financial uncertainty, and we have a perfect storm of forces aligned to make our lives incredibly difficult and challenging. In spite of all of this, however, I'm heartened by the stick-to-itivity, persistence, grit, and aplomb that you've all demonstrated. Your eagerness to make sure that our students continue to receive the very best education possible, done some really amazing things with your classes and in supporting their needs, and your determination to look after one another and to ensure that we are all okay is truly inspiring. So again, thank you for all that you have done and continue to do on behalf of the college. Let me now turn to a brief overview of the current state of affairs in CASL. First, it is an honor to introduce you all to our new faculty and staff colleagues. So the first person I would like to introduce you to is Ji Fan, who is an assistant professor of biology. We are also being joined by Georgie Kabarovsky, a lecturer 3 in French, Kristja Saber, an assistant professor of philosophy, Suvratra Tripathi, assistant professor of physics, Tian An Wong, assistant professor of mathematics, and Michelle Rahman, who is joining us as an administrative assistant in the natural sciences. Welcome all of you to the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters. I also want to acknowledge that we have among us a number of faculty and staff colleagues who have either recently announced their retirement or who will soon be retiring. Because of the personal nature of such decisions, I won't mention specific names, but I did want to offer our collective congratulations and thanks to these individuals. I would also be remiss if I did not recognize the recent passing of Bernie Klein, one of the pillars of the CASL community. Bernie, for those of you who did not know him, was one of the funniest, most lovable, and most caring individuals that you could ever imagine. He was a brilliant educator, a well-respected mentor and guide, a forward-thinking and admired administrator, and a wonderful friend. This university owes much of its success to his hard work, his dedication and leadership, and initiative. He will be sorely missed by many, myself among them. A little over a month ago, I submitted my annual report on the college to Provost Alcock. I always find inspiration when assembling that document, but this year, given our particular circumstances and the challenges that we've faced, I was especially proud of all that I had to report on. Among our many accomplishments during the 2019-2020 academic year are the following. We increased our first to second year retention rate by roughly 5% and our four-year graduation rate by nearly 10%. Think about that. That's really amazing. We had the creation of the Foundations program, which we launched just this semester. Those courses are all very well enrolled. We had the endowment of the Get to Graduation Scholarship. We've now provided just under $50,000 to help our students complete their degrees, 62 students, in fact. With the new digital education initiatives in support of online education, CDEC, CASL Digital Education Collaborative, led by Marie Wong, and CIDR, better known as Get to Nearly 100, led by Cam Amin. We could also note the development of new digital content highlighting the college and many of its individual programs. We revised our strategic plan and created a new academic year 2020-2021 implementation plan. Collectively, we published 18 books, 41 book chapters, 110 articles, and wrote 74 successful grants. We launched our actuarial mathematics degree program and partnered with CECS on the creation of the new human-centered design joint degree program. We remained committed to supporting student research. NatSci alone is averaging just under 18 students per year over the last 10 years who are publishing with their faculty mentors. We continued to model for our campus what engaged scholarship and teaching look like. And the examples here are far too numerous. All of this, though, just represents but a sampling of our many achievements. There are, in short, many things to be proud of in CASL. I know that you are all aware of this, but it is good to be reminded every now and then of the great work that we do in the college. But my main purpose today is to share with you some conclusions I have come to about CASL and its future. I believe CASL needs to shift its course and its identity in a more fundamental way if we are to remain vital and relevant in the coming decades. If we are to continue to attract and retain students and inspiring faculty, and if we are to have a chance of changing the narrative from the steady drip, drip, drip of declining resources, of moving from doing more with less to just doing less. Of course, a significant reason for our need to think very differently about our college as we move forward is our financial reality. As you are all now painfully aware, the current financial situation in the college is bleak. Over the last 7 months, the college's base budget has been cut by nearly $2 million, and we've had to surrender an additional $1 million in allocated carry-forward monies to cover costs associated with the COVID pandemic and a central budget deficit resulting from campus enrollment declines in the 2019-2020 academic year. The $2 million base budget reduction was particularly challenging as 93% of the college's roughly $30 million in annual budget is tied up in faculty and staff salaries and benefits. To meet our goal, we had to make a number of difficult decisions. The college cut virtually all non-salary benefits related expenses from its base budget, including in some departments, office phones. Sadly, however, these reductions still left us well short of the mark, and we had to reduce expenses still further, resulting in work loss for some LEO and a handful of staff colleagues. And as you can see, 98% of what is now left of our base is dedicated to faculty, staff salaries, and benefits. While the Regent's recent approval of the overall university budget, with its attendant move to a block tuition model, this model enables students to pay one flat tuition fee for a credit load of 12 or greater credits. A tuition increase for the Dearborn campus, and the infusion of some Ann Arbor funds in support of student success initiatives ensured that the college did not need to engage in more draconian cuts in the here and now. It does not guarantee that further reductions will not be forthcoming. The college and the campus as a whole are still facing any number of uncertainties: state funding, enrollments, costs associated with COVID, that, depending on how they play out, could lead to additional budget reductions. Moreover, as the campus's budget is rebuilt from the ground up, CASL's financial base and the resources that it might have available to it going forward are completely unknown. Another area that will be in play is our curriculum and how it is delivered. How much longer will this pandemic continue? Even once it has passed, will we ever return to the way things used to be? My own opinion is that we will not. What does the university and classroom of the future look like? How do we leverage the work we've done on the remote learning and working front to enhance our teaching and student success? One of the aforementioned uncertainties, our enrollment, is coming into sharper view. As you can see, as of September 7th, September 16th, the college's student headcount stood at 2,616, down 207 students from last year. Credit hours were likewise down, standing at 31,703, down 1,707 credits from last year. For the university as a whole, the numbers are also down. As of yesterday, the final headcount tally for the university was 8,791 students, down 489 from last year. And credit hours were 94,011, down 3,489 from last year. Those numbers fall a bit short of the range of general predictions made by our Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management. It is important to note as well that those predictions also represent a figure intended to approximate last year's fall enrollment, that, as I mentioned a bit ago, was down from the year prior. In short, our enrollments fell in comparison to the numbers that were down from the year before. In regard to revenue, the story is still murky. While the overall numbers of credit hours are down across the college and university, the campus did have a tuition increase. At the same time, the number of chancellor's level scholarship awards, which include full tuition, awarded by the university, is also up significantly. Having more students who don't pay does not, of course, help the university's bottom line. Where overall revenue will actually land thus remains uncertain. Another open question is the new direction that the university as a whole will take moving forward. Chancellor Grasso recently announced a series of new initiatives designed to enhance student success here on campus, and tied these initiatives to campus-level strategic planning conversations. He has, of course, also been engaging the campus in conversation, and thanks to the many of you who have participated in those conversations around other big ideas that people might have on this front. Other elements of this broader discussion include the Urban Futures Initiative and ongoing work on the diversity, equity, and inclusion front, work made all the more imperative after last week. Overall, however, the campus's future identity and direction are still very much an open question. Which leads me to the primary purpose of my convening this virtual gathering today, to share with you all my thoughts about what I see as both an opportunity and a necessity for the college as we move forward. For those of you who have been affiliated with the college for any length of time, you will undoubtedly recognize that one of the primary difficulties that we have long faced is a sense of our identity. Unlike our professionally oriented peers, ours in the main is not a college that steers students toward a specific career path or set of connected career paths. Rather, as the college that provides the expansive knowledge and critical soft skills that enable such students and all students to succeed and that renders them into thoughtful, informed members of society, our reach has traditionally been very broad. Throughout its relatively short lifespan, CASL worked hard to replicate what our larger peers across the country did, trying diligently to offer the full range of academic programs that one could find at larger, more resource-rich universities. Indeed, when I became dean, my personal goal for CASL was to leverage the college's relatively small size and the great work that had been done to build strong academic programs to create an identity for the college as a publicly funded version of a small private liberal arts college, complete with the high-value student success programs one associates with such schools. That vision fit the CASL of 2013, and it resonated with a great many of you. And I'm proud of the many steps taken to move that vision forward. I think that we, in spite of a battery of obstacles and a chronic shortage of money, accomplished some amazing things. New academic programs, dramatically increased funding for student research, new facilities, a plethora of new study abroad opportunities, enhanced support for faculty research, a new strategic plan, greater capacity to tell our stories, etc. Unfortunately, however, largely due to a lack of resources and the exponential enrollment growth in engineering and business, and our own associated enrollment decline, CASL was never able to fully realize that vision, and as a result, looks much the same as all of our other peer institutions who are trying to be everything to everybody in the pursuit of students. Recent circumstances make it abundantly clear, however, that this mode of operating is not a sustainable one. We cannot, in my view, continue along the same path and expect a different outcome, nor is the vision we were once pursuing one that can nurture the college going forward. Trying to play the us-two game is a recipe for disaster, and given our size and finances, is not a plan for success. Universities across the country, most recently Adrian College here in Michigan, are cutting programs across the arts and sciences. CASL itself has been unable to make the case for hires in areas that we know add value to a student's education, but that do not necessarily draw large numbers of students. And the college is being forced to reassess what we can do given our resource base and our students' interests. Does this mean that CASL students should no longer be exposed to the arts, to history, to foreign languages, to physics, or to anthropology? Of course they should. Absolutely they should. I am not convinced, however, that we necessarily need to do this in the manner that we've always done it. Indeed, I can think of a number of programs in the college where students gain exposure to multiple disciplines without being bound to the traditional curricular design that is characteristic of many disciplines. I'll point to my own discipline as an example. I've watched our students and faculty push back against the limitations of the time-bound chronological courses that comprise the bulk of our history curriculum, and creatively challenge the curriculum and its delivery mode to do more and to be more relevant, both for the teacher and the learner. What is increasingly clear to me is that CASL desperately needs a new identity. Now, the good news is that there is, in my view, a vision out there that is already very much in evidence in our college, one that has already shaped a lot of what we do. This became abundantly clear to me as I prepared this year's annual report, and as I listened to faculty, students, and staff share ideas with the provost and with my team about the big ideas they had. Time and again, I heard people talking about engagement and about applied problem-based teaching and scholarship as a strength of the college. This theme was reinforced in discussions at a recent administrative council retreat, and from those discussions emerged what I see as a potential new path forward for the college. Rather than a traditional liberal arts college with the same traditional disciplines offered by every other institution of higher learning, perhaps we could reimagine ourselves as a sort of arts, sciences, and letters laboratory school, whose work, both pedagogical and scholarly, focuses on solving the problems of our region: race and disparity, the environment, community development, sustainability, smart public policy, urban design, etc., etc. These are big problems that are on display vividly, and some of them most vividly, here in our region. Given that the overwhelming majority of our students stay in Michigan, and more specifically in our region, this approach could prove to be both a big draw as well as a real boon to the area. Moreover, given this generation's sense of urgency around the big problems that we face as a society, this organizing theme can also perhaps attract students here from outside of the region, and perhaps even outside of the state or country, to study and work on them. Such an experiential model would allow us to organize around particular themes and problems, and to bring together expertise from a vast array of disciplines and programs. It would expose students to a plethora of disciplinary perspectives, it would play to our strengths, and it would set us apart from all of our state peers. It wouldn't mean an end to us teaching history or English or physics or art, but it would mean that we teach these things in a new and more applied way. It would also mean that we would need to change our organizational structure and curriculum flexibility to embody and enable that new identity. Now, I offer this not as a grand blueprint that must be followed, but rather as a vehicle for inviting you all to participate in a conversation about the future course of the college and about the heart and soul of who we are. Does this model resonate with you? How could we get there? What would the college need to look like to support this sort of model? What other ideas do you have? It is clear to me that we need to try something new. It is also evident that if we don't take action on our own, we may find ourselves swept up in a campus transformation that seeks to impose an identity on us. I'm reminded of the words of our former president, Barack Obama, when he said, "Our destiny is not written for us, it's written by us, and we will write the next chapter together." It is thus, in my view, imperative that we take control of our destiny. In doing so, I believe we can help to chart a new course for the university as a whole, one that recognizes and values the key contributions of the college, one that reflects our vision and identity, one that serves our students, and one that sets us apart from our peers. Over the next few weeks, I will be holding a series of informal listening sessions with faculty, staff, and students to hear your ideas about the question of identity. I will also explore other modes for collecting your ideas. Now, I understand that you are all extremely busy, and that it is often difficult to find the time or mental energy to engage in such a far-ranging conversation. But I do believe that it is of vital importance that we be as proactive as possible and that we use our collective imagination and experience to determine what this college will be going forward. I'm eager to start the conversation, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you for spending some time with me this afternoon. And again, thank you all for all that you do for the college and for our students. I wish you all a very successful and safe 2020-2021 academic year. And with that, I'm going to invite Dr. Rita Gordon to join me. She'll facilitate the Q&A session around the questions that you have submitted in the Q&A feature. So I'm going to turn it over to Rita.
Hi, Marty. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. It's great to see you virtually. And thank you, Marty, for sharing with us your vision. We've gotten several questions in. The first is, I have a student who is struggling. How do I refer them to the Get Graduation Scholarship?
So that's a great question. And we're seeing increased demand for the Get to Graduation scholarship. Every single semester, the number of requests are going up. The best way or the easiest way to have a student enter into the queue and become a candidate for Get to Graduation is to work with the CASL advising office. Our advisors can direct the students. There's a form that they fill out to make the request. Both CASL advising and the financial aid office then become involved to take a look at the student's record to make sure that they can indeed graduate in a relatively short term, and that in fact the need that the students are expressing does really exist. So students who are eligible for Get to Graduation should be students who are at the very end of their academic careers. Generally, they are students who have maybe one semester's worth of courses left, perhaps a little bit more than that. They should have exhausted all of their financial aid eligibility. Unfortunately, that means that if they're eligible for loans, they have to take those before they can access Get to Graduation funds. And I understand that some students would like to avoid that, but really the Get to Graduation fund is designed to help students complete their degree and to cross that finish line. And so they should have exhausted all of their financial aid eligibility. There's no grade point average requirement. The purpose is to get people to graduation. So it's a wonderful scholarship. We've made great use of it. And that's the easiest way for students to plug into it.
Great, thank you. Questions are flying in fast and furious. So everyone, I will try to get them to the dean. Anything that we run out of time for, as we did with the town hall, we'll be posting questions and answers afterwards. So question number 2, how is this different from the band's transformation that didn't fly a few years ago? It seems like just a new marketing of the same idea.
So it's a good question. So the band's pilot launched actually this last academic year. Unfortunately, certainly the COVID pandemic did not help with the bands, the integrated bands pilot, and certainly impacted the effectiveness there. Those bands, however, were organized around broader themes that didn't necessarily relate to specific problems or issues in our immediate region and area. So we had a band around food and food security, which could certainly be seen as a problem in the region. And the other one was organized more around Middle Eastern studies and the like. I would not necessarily classify the bands as failures. I think they were able to accomplish some interesting things. What would be different is that rather than the bands being a pilot and or a small piece of what we do, this kind of organizing principle would become our reason for being, our raison d'etre, right? This would be our primary focus, and that we would look to engage faculty from across the college and have them involved in this new approach, in this lab school approach. So in some regards, it is a continuation of the integrated bands, but I think it's a continuation on a more ambitious scale, and one that would, in my view, bring to bear more of the resources and talents of the college as a whole, and one that would be very much focused on sort of the big problems of our region.
Great, thank you. Question number 3. In your view, what role would general education courses play in an arts, sciences, and letters laboratory school? And would all classes take on a general ed function?
So again, another interesting question. When the Dearborn Discovery Corps was originally being discussed, there were a fair number of folks on the original faculty working group who envisioned different pathways through our general education that would prepare students for particular courses of study. So it very well could be that a laboratory school approach focused on these big problems steers students through the Dearborn Discovery Way in a particular way so that the courses that they take would be germane to the issues or the problems that they might be interested in studying, and set the groundwork for their future work in those applied areas. So I think that the general education would could be used, Dearborn Discovery Corps could be used in a really interesting way to enhance that laboratory school approach. I think the second part of the question was, would all courses then become general education? No, I don't believe that would be the case. Just as the courses that one might take in one of our college-wide programs at the upper level are not all general education courses, right? They're designed to expose students to a wide range of disciplinary perspectives, to give them a grounding in multiple scholarly tools and approaches. In that sense, I think not all courses become general education. In fact, some courses would focus rather specifically on particular problem sets, or helping students to hone their skills and how to apply what they're learning in the classroom to those problem sets or to those big issues. So I don't view CASL as being relegated to entirely the school that is all general education. Certainly, we fulfill that mission for the university. I think it was 87% of Dearborn Discovery courses are taught here in the college. But just as our current courses are not all general education, are not conceived or relegated as merely general education courses, I don't believe that this new approach would entail that either. It wouldn't require the same thing.
Great, thank you. Question 4, how can faculty be involved in retention efforts?
That's a great question. Because as you saw from the statistics that were posted, our retention numbers were down overall. As I said, our retention rates from year 1 to year 2 went up, but our overall retention rates are down. The college has reoriented a staff position, Morgan Younger's position, to focus extensively on retention efforts. Morgan has a number of initiatives underway. She's working actively with our admissions office and with other units on campus that are also focusing on retention efforts. She's launching a series of sort of town halls for faculty and students, where there can be more conversations about things going on in the college. So what I would certainly tell faculty is that, and staff, every interaction that you have with a student is potentially a retention work. Making sure that students get the answers that they need, making sure that students are heard, that's all part of our retention effort. And if you have other ideas, or if you're looking for specific things to do, send an email to Morgan, and she could, or I can easily direct you to something that might be a good fit for your whatever time you might have available, or the kinds of things that you're interested in doing. But this is definitely has to be an area of primary focus for the college. Otherwise, we are going to continue to see our financial base erode, because the numbers of students that we have may also continue to shrink.
Great, thank you. Next question. I heard that we are going to move toward interdisciplinarity, tongue twister, and applied work, and moving away from liberal arts. Can you be more concrete at all? Are you planning to abolish disciplines and departments?
So I don't, again, this is, I'm putting this out there for conversation. This is an idea that came to me as a result of preparing the annual report, as a result of listening to people talk, as a result of conversations I've had with department chairs and the like. I don't see the applied model or the lab school model as destroying the liberal arts. On the contrary, what I see it doing is making those traditional areas of study more relevant to students, because they can actually see how the study of history, or the study of art, or the study of physics might be connected directly and applied directly to some of these real world problems that they're seeing unfold on their television screens or on social media on a daily basis. And they can then begin to think about, all right, how do historians or art historians think about problems? How do they approach solving problems or offering solutions? Or how does their work fit into what I'm seeing? What are the connections between history and women and gender studies and economics that are sort of playing out here? How do disparities in terms of access to healthcare and the like, how is that all related to economics, to sociology, to how do we use statistics to discern that and understand it? So I don't see this as being inconsistent at all with studying the liberal arts. On the contrary, I see it as taking the liberal arts, the humanities, sciences to a new level. And so rather than being sort of abstract things that students study because it's good for them, or because someone told them they should, and there's nothing wrong with studying philosophy, for instance, in and of itself, but thinking about ways that it can apply and that the ways that it may be connected to other areas of study, to me, seems more exciting for the students, and I think could be exciting for faculty as well. In terms of reorganization, restructure, look, I don't know what a structure would look like to support this kind of work. That would be something that we would collectively have to talk about and discuss so that we could figure out if this is the route we're going to go, what kind of a structure do we need to support this work? How would it change up, for instance, our promotion and tenure? Maybe traditional departments wouldn't work for this, but maybe other structures would. And so I don't have anything particular in mind for this. If it's an idea that people embrace and like, that would be part of the conversation, right? We've decided to do this. What do we need to do as a college to set up an organizational structure to support this kind of work, this kind of learning, this kind of teaching?
Great, thank you. Next question. I have a freshman who could really use a tablet to help them participate in synchronous portions of my class. Are there any tablets left for checkout? Is there any money left to purchase? I know this was not a CASL budget money item, but instead pandemic funds for student success. If there are, how do we get them help?
So what I would do in this particular case is direct the person who's asking this question to our IT office. They have an inventory of available assets for student use. So the university does have some tablets and some laptops that it loans out. I think the library also has some that they make available. This might also be a situation where the student could apply for CARES funding, which is available. Half of the money that came to the university through the CARES Act is set aside specifically to support students. And so the student could apply for CARES Act funding to purchase needed equipment like a tablet to be able to participate in the remote learning environment. So if people need help accessing folks or need to be pointed in the direction of who to contact, they can certainly send me an email, and I'd be happy to connect them up with folks who can give them more specific information.
Great, thanks. Next question. What is the commitment of Ann Arbor and the Regents to support the transformation of the Dearborn campus, and CASL to serve the region in a way that Ann Arbor's campus has clearly failed to do? What are we left to do? Why are we left to do this on our own for our student demographics?
Interesting question. And, obviously I can't speak authoritatively on what Ann Arbor thinks or what their plans are. Certainly, I think we have seen under President Schlissel a greater commitment to the regional campuses than we've seen under any previous president of the University of Michigan. Ann Arbor has certainly been flexing its muscle and trying to do more in the Detroit metropolitan area. Some of those efforts have gone well and others have not, in part because frankly, the Ann Arbor faculty don't know the area all that well, and they don't have the connections that our faculty do. I think there's a growing realization amongst Ann Arbor faculty. I just had a conversation with an English faculty member who's plugging into an initiative here in the city of Detroit that that Dearborn faculty have a level of expertise that many of the folks in Ann Arbor are missing. And there seems to be an increasing willingness to partner up with folks on the Dearborn campus. I don't know what Ann Arbor's thinking is relative to Dearborn Influence role in the University of Michigan. Certainly some of the regents have taken a greater interest in the regional campuses and are looking to elevate the work that we do and recognize its central importance to the overall University of Michigan. Again, though, I would say we don't have the time or the luxury of sitting around and waiting to see what Ann Arbor plans to do or what Ann Arbor's thinking, Dearborn, how Dearborn might fit into the overall University of Michigan plan. I think it's important that we try to establish the framework for that dialogue and that we make it clear what we're all about and the way that we're engaged or engaging with the region. And then I think it's an easy matter for the chancellor and the provost to make the case to Ann Arbor for funding. Maybe it's one-time funding to help to seed some of these initiatives, to get them off the ground and to get things rolling in a way that, that moves forward that vision.
Next question. After this academic year, we will have many more students and many more faculty who are comfortable with remote instruction. To what extent can a revised identity take advantage of that remote experience in the future? And should we actively pursue online learning as a principal focus of UMD?
Well, definitely remote learning is not going away. And I think that the person who asked the question is absolutely right. Our capacity for remote learning, our expertise in remote learning has been greatly enhanced as a result of the current pandemic. I think we were already doing some wonderful work in that area in the college, and thankfully for that, because that really helped to make the transition to remote learning easier than it otherwise might have been. I very much believe that CASL and the university as a whole are going to be looking at a much more mixed approach to delivery of our curriculum. I think that remote learning is here to stay. I don't think we become the University of Phoenix where everything is remote, but I do think that we will see more majors that students can pursue remotely, and frankly, hopefully, a pathway for students to complete an entire degree online if they so choose. Now, having said that, I also recognize that the advantages of face-to-face instruction are important. Thinking about my own education as a first-generation college student, it was those face-to-face interactions with the faculty and with my peers, many of whom came from the same background, that really enabled me to succeed. And while you can certainly have some similar interactions in a remote environment, in my view, it may be easier for some students to do that in a more personal environment that you would see in a traditional face-to-face classroom. And frankly, some students learn differently and better in those face-to-face environments as well. So I believe that the college now has we've got more different tools, more different pedagogical approaches that we are able to employ. And I think we should use the full range of those pedagogical approaches as we move forward instructing our students. We're not going to become wholly online. but I don't think we go back to the way we were either. Good thing is it maybe takes care of some of the parking problems on campus. So
True. How would this laboratory approach be possible without engaging other colleges? To really embrace these complex problems, CASL would need to collaborate with other units. This is a similar limiting factor / question that we had during the initial bans.
and it's spot on, right? For us to really be successful, and for students to really have the knowledge and the perspective that is necessary for them to really apply what they're learning to these problems. We can't just rely on the perspectives available in the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters. So I'm thinking two things here. One, again, by starting this conversation, CASL can help to initiate wider conversations on campus around this laboratory school approach, which could influence further strategic planning at the campus level. The Chancellor Grasso, has already sort of made mention or reference to this kind of thinking as a possible pathway forward for the university. So it's not inconsistent at all with some of the things that are being said at the campus level. I think it's also a point of interest for Provost Alcock to start to engage the university community as a whole in some broader conversations around our current organization. Again, I think some of the, the more interesting work that happens on this campus is in those liminal areas between the colleges, where you've got faculty coming together with different perspectives and different sets of ideas and talents to really engage around issues. And the questions is spot on. These are big issues that run across the broad range of areas of expertise and study encompassed across the campus, and it will require broad perspective. So what I see is, by CASL engaging in this conversation, we're able to help move the campus as a whole forward. And, I think that there's already some indication that folks at the top are seeing some similar things or similar promise in this kind of an approach.
Are other units on campus being asked to make similar drastic cuts and radical shifts in mission and identity, given the declines in numbers are a campus-wide problem? Is CASL asked to change radically when other units just keep doing what they do when their graduate programs are experiencing big hits?
So I would, the answer to that is that we've been asked collectively, all academic units, to come up with big ideas, to think in new ways about the way we do our business, the way we educate students, the way we engage in scholarship and research. Now, it's certainly the case that CASL has taken it on the chin as of late. Part of that's a function of a flawed budget model that never worked well for the college. Part of it's a function of the fact that CASL, like virtually every other College of Arts and Sciences across the country, has experienced persistent enrollment declines. So the other academic units have had a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more in the way of buffer that's protected them from having to dig as deep into force the issue of maybe confronting how it is that they do their work and how it is that they're organized. But those conversations are definitely starting to take place. I think that we've seen a lot of discussion about stronger collaborations and more work between CASL and CHESS, which has been a traditional partner of ours. The human-centered design degree program that I talked about, that was done in partnership with engineering. Engineering's also been talking about the possibility of environmental engineering and is very interested in partnering with the College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters on this front. College of Business has also been forced to make some reductions and cuts, and I think is being asked to think differently about the way that they educate students and the way that the kinds of things that they offer students as well. The Urban Futures was another area that was intended to bring people together from all of the academic units around a particular set of ideas and or goals. So while, yes, CASL has been in the most vulnerable position, but at the same time, the arts and humanities and sciences, a lot of new ideas and new ways of thinking traditionally reside in these disciplines. And so we're a creative bunch. We've got a lot of interesting ideas in the college. And I think thinking about new ways of doing our business is something that we should all be doing on a regular basis anyway.
We have had lots of wonderful questions, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to them all here. I've got one last question for you, Marty, and
okay.
then we'll wrap it up. And just to let everybody know, you can still continue to submit questions and we'll answer them afterwards. So the last question is, can we become the online or digital campus of the University of Michigan, since UM-AA seems resistant to non-residential learning? And before the pandemic, we had more online classes than UM-AA. And then a comment, I taught more online than face-to-face before the pandemic, fully enrolled.
Great question. It's an interesting one. I don't know. I'm curious to know what the conversations in Ann Arbor have been as they've had to roll more into the area of remote learning. That would certainly be a possibility. I know that one thing that our current provost anyway would like to see is more collaboration between the three campuses, but especially between Dearborn and Flint. Flint has a pretty robust online curriculum as well. I don't know. It's a really interesting point, and yes, we definitely see student interest in remote learning. Those are the classes that have traditionally filled up the quickest, and so that's something to consider and talk about some more.
Sounds good. Well, Marty,
Okay.
that is our time to answer questions during this forum. But again, we will be going through all of the questions submitted and posting those answers as soon as we can. And with that, I turn it back to you for any final words.
Okay. Well, again, thank you, Rita, and thanks for the great questions. And we will try to get to all of those and post some responses. I really appreciate you all taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today. And I look forward to the conversations. Again, we'll try to start getting some of those set up for the near future. Likewise, if you have ideas and you don't necessarily want to join one of those groups, you can always send me an email. Similarly, if you have a question that you didn't feel comfortable putting on the Q&A, even though you can do it anonymously, send it my way and I will do what I can to respond. So again, thank you, and stay safe, everybody, and keep doing the great work that you're doing.